Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of July 23rd, 2024. Councillor Eck, could I have a territorial acknowledgement, please?
We appreciate sharing this land with our First Nations neighbors.
Thank you. We have the agenda approval. I just wanted to add public participation before the report for action. Are there any other additions or omissions? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We have the reports for action on page 3. CAO Payette. This is the Fire Hall Feasibility Study Award of Contract. So this is to bring forward the information regarding the Fire Hall Feasibility Study Award of Contract. It's recommended that Council give final approval for the single qualified consultant as outlined here. CAO Payette, did you want to add to that?
I just wonder if you wanted to have public participation before the...
Oh yes, that's right, I'm sorry. Yeah, I added it and then forgot. Does anybody from the public? Apologies. Anybody else wants to speak at the microphone?
Jennifer Burgess, 3837 Duke Road. I just want to give appreciation for the stage that this has finally come to, and I'm sure there are a lot of us in the public who will be very keen to keep following the stages and hope that this consideration of our new fire hall development will go as fast as possible. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I didn't realize that there was a public participation component on the meeting, so I'm not exactly prepared, but I do really have one or two comments. And one is that I guess the big question I have is what on earth can you possibly receive for $39,000 for an RFP that contained a set of specifications which are incredibly broad and expansive? Quite frankly, I don't see how you can possibly get anything that actually says anything. The other thing which I wanted to comment on apparently was that this budget estimate for $39,000 was significantly below the next competitor. Certainly from the 30-odd years of experience that I had in the consulting business, any budget that was brought in for significantly lower than anything else raised so many flags as to be discounted altogether and not considered for evaluation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anybody else wish to speak this evening or this afternoon?
I'll just say, I'm Mike Hornick, Rocky Point Road. I'm the chair of the Fire Hall Steering Committee. I just thought I'd make myself available if there's any questions.
Okay.
Right,
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Okay, with that, let's turn to the reports for action. Go back, CAO Payette. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, thanks through the chair. So in the report, basically, we did get 4 proposals, and I believe the amount 39.9 was under the budget, is what it says. We actually received the 4 proponents, and the amount for the cost of the study were fairly similar. So actually, this wasn't the best. This was actually maybe a couple $100 more than the lowest, but it had a bunch more value-added aspects to the studies, and it also included a separate cost analysis from a costing company, so which was valued at $4,000. So for those reasons, our committee the steering committee two are here today. We went through the criteria and the scoring, and it scored the best. So we are recommending this for approval. and open for questions. Oh, and sorry, and I did reference checks, quite a number of reference checks. They had a number of fire halls that they had built in the province over the years. So I called a number of municipalities and had some good dialogue, not only about the proponent, but also about the process of the study and interaction with the public. And actually learned quite a bit through the reference checks, but all the reference checks were suitable. So, yeah.
That's great. DC Henning, and Chair of the Feasibility Committee, did either of you want to add comments at this time, or just be there for questions? Questions? Okay, that's great. Okay, committee. Councillor Kemp.
Through the chair, I would like to hear Mr. Hornick is a contractor, builder, and knows a lot about this kind of thing, and I'd just like to kind of get your viewpoint on why you picked this particular one.
So we went through the four different tenders that came back. Two were basically disqualified because they didn't meet the criteria. Not to mention their pricing was in excess of the two selected. So there was two qualifiers who were pretty close dollar-wise. I think that I think the one was a little tiny bit lower, but there's a lot of value adders in the one that we've scored highest. They've got a massive background in fire halls. They've built, I don't know how many, like upwards of a dozen maybe, or something to that effect. They're a BC company, which I think is important, having somebody local there on the mainland, but the knowledge base is vast, and having the cost consulting in their bid, so it's sort of a separate third-party price costing, so a professional in that matter, like a CPA. It just was really hands down, and not just dollars, but the price was good too. It was, so if, out of four bids, this would have been the one up from the bottom cost-wise, but qualifications are vast and background is vast. And I think that's why they're able to put together something, because they've done this so many times. They're definitely specialists in fire halls. I think it's the right choice for many reasons, not to mention the price was good.
Great,
Councillor
thank you.
Kemp, did you want to have another question?
No, I think that's great. Well, maybe, you're also a firefighter.
I'm not, but
not
contractor.
Yeah. Too, but so thank you, and so and maybe we can have the firefighters' opinion about what they think the RFP.
Thank you.
Yeah, so when we reviewed the different RFPs and what each component offered, the association that we chose had a lot of input into, I think it was actually over 70 fire halls in feasibility studies, and trying to provide the community and the public with the knowledge and information they need to make an informed decision. So us in that steering committee, and that's what our choice is, like we're not saying we want to build this specific building in a specific way or these specific options, just to be able to put out on the table that we have all these different options that we can look at. And that's the intent of that feasibility study, is to try and put that together and have a package together that we can do. So I think it's a wise choice on what we're going with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to have comments?
I do.
Councillor Donaldson, go ahead.
So to the CAO, through the chair, this company obviously has rave reviews from the two people that have spoken with the feasibility studies for service and their background, and reading a little bit of the literature here. I'm just wondering if those studies they've done previously were of the same cost and magnitude. We're a very small community. It was a $40,000 contract. Were the others, other ones that they did through the reference checks, were they of similar?
Yeah, through the chair, they have done facilities that were $20 million over the years, and they've done a number of facilities that were in our kind of area, size and scope. I would say maybe 50-50. So, and it's kind of interesting, like over the years, how there's cost escalation. So, a facility 10 years ago would have been $4 million. Now it's probably twice as much. So, I did ask those kind of questions, like the size of the building, and the year it was built, and still there was lots of experience in all the different sizes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, additional questions?
Want me to stand up here?
Councillor Donaldson, did you have any
No,
questions?
so not right now.
Okay. Councillor Gray?
What was the smallest one they built cost-wise?
Oh, maybe. Well, they've done study. There's quite a number of studies they've done for starters, for small municipalities our size. Building wise, I believe I remember 2.5 million, 4 million, that range, and then 10 million and 12 million. Langley, they just completed, comes to mind. So.
Thanks. You just left us hanging with 20 million. So
20 million.
appreciate hearing some other numbers. Thanks.
It's a lot of numbers. But yeah, so in this case, they're doing a scoping study, and a lot of the references were just basically the studies. They weren't actually carried through or whatnot. So.
Councillor Schuch and then Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Mayor Little, through you. I may be missing something, but I don't see in the RFP document. Sorry, first of all, I just want to thank everyone who's been involved in the Firehouse Steering Committee, Mr. Hornick and DC Henry, thank you very much, and the rest of the members. I could be wrong, but I don't see anything in the RFP document that talks about seismic matters. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm assuming, though, that is just baked into the process when you're developing a building, and there's probably even standards for fire halls that must be adhered to.
Yeah. So I'll just answer that with the location, like the location in the proposal, and then maybe we'll have DC talk a little bit about a previous review that was done.
Okay.
So just
sure.
Yeah, so the site study, impact on building, footprint, grading, and other features. This phase will also include a review of applicable zoning and planning regulations, explore current site conditions, and there's a whole bunch of other information, and at the end, site analysis and environmental construction. So I think we're well covered in not only reviewing plans, but also, your concerns about, and everybody's concerns about the seismic integrity of the building, for sure. And then, I'll have dialogue with the proponents ahead of time to ensure that they're crystal clear on our expectations.
Okay.
And if the DC wants to supplement that.
Can I make a comment to that as well? So in any emergency building, fire department, ambulance, hospital, police, their seismic factor of 1.5, which is they have to be engineered for post-disaster. Mm-hmm. So that just goes without saying. Okay. And in part of our work that we've done, we've gotten a geotechnical assessment on the site. We did the drilling to understand what the site classification is. So site classifications, understanding the subsurface soils and what their bearing capacity would be in liquefaction factor under seismic events. And in addition to that, we also got a structural engineer's review on the existing apparatus bay to see, sort of what status it's at currently, what design it was built to, and whether or not there was a potential to do seismic upgrades to that existing structure to retain it, or would it need to be reconstructed with the firewall? So we've actually done some of the work for the feasibility study already, so we'll be able to supplement them with that design. But I think to answer the question is that it just goes without saying it's post-disaster building and it's a firewall. That'd be building code requirements.
Thanks.
Okay. Did you have additional questions, Councillor Schuch? Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Ed.
Thank you. Through the chair to the CAO. So we're looking at a couple different components. We're looking at a complete new build. Are we looking at a phase in of maybe enhancing the apparatus bay so that it is seismic more sooner than later? Or are there different components to the RFP? It is, as one of the residents said, it's a very broad document, and I'm just wondering, will this company be able to give us sort of like 3 different concepts of what we might look at?
Yeah, an options analysis. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how they address it, options analysis.
Thanks.
Mr. Eck?
No, sir, I was just trying to point out that Mr. Hornick had something to add. So
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Gray?
Thank you. So through the chair, I'm just curious then about the objectives in the RFP, and they relate to questions like the needs of the community, and how does the proponent plan to, answer that question, or how do they do that? I was under the impression, and perhaps as Councillor Shukin was, that we were contemplating replacing the hall because of the seismic question. Is there some other need that we're looking at?
Some other need besides the mold in the building and the roof that continues to leak, those kind of things that will be addressed as well.
So the specific needs are removing mold, a leaking roof, and asbestos? I was asking the CAO, but if you know the answer.
Maybe I can help with some of that. It's a good question. Through the chair, great questions. And so there'll be, at the beginning of the exercise for the study, there will be a needs analysis done with the fire department and the committee, and to look at what the needs are versus what we currently have in place. And I believe that maybe is the language you're looking at there. And so
yeah, it's specific about community need. It actually doesn't mention anything about mold and other things which would relate to the fire hall itself. And I was curious about how community need is measured, or where will they go to get the information, or what's the data used that they're going to look at?
Yeah, well, I think through that needs analysis, through the committee, and I can't remember if there's public engagement at the beginning or at the middle of the process. It's in the document.
I don't. In our document?
No, and proponents. And so I believe there'll be some research done to engage what the community needs are, for sure.
We don't exactly know like I would have imagined it would be things like that it can hold so many fire trucks. The need, that would be the need.
Oh,
or
yeah.
You're saying how many? Are they going to tell us how many fire trucks we need?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, based on regulations and fire regulations versus our data of calls, that'll be in the needs analysis, I would think.
I'm going to the question, I guess, here that, as was commented on, the breadth of the study here. And I'm just curious, is the person or the company coming back and saying we have enough fire trucks, or we need more fire trucks, or fire trucks are the wrong type, we should sell one, buy another in order to house it? How broad is the examination that's going to be done? Or is it to house our current fire trucks and our current staff?
Isn't this this is a fire hall, not fire truck, but fire hall accessibility or feasibility study?
Yeah, I would think it'd be based on our current assets. I don't think there's going to be speculation too much about if we have the right number of fire trucks. I believe if we didn't, we would know that right now.
Yeah,
I'm just saying we're talking, but I'm just saying that.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised to see the sort of details in the document suggesting they're going to be looking way bigger than what I think we're particularly wanting here. And the language is here without being able to see the other, and talking about, for example, impact of future densification, which I've raised before. It's as if they're looking to build a fire hall for a community that isn't Metchosin, but somewhere else possibly. So that's that. Maybe the next question, there was an issue here about that I'm wondering in the proposal, how do they describe how they're going to review the district's financial capacity to undertake the project? What will they do? Is that they want to look at our books, or are they going to talk to the Municipal Financing Authority, or how do they determine how much we're prepared to pay?
I don't
Page,
I don't have an answer to that. They'll do whatever they do as consultants to determine our feasibility.
so we don't know how they're going to review the district's finances.
Well, they can look up our annual reports and our financial plan and our 5-year plan for sure, but they could also ask questions of the CEO and the CFO. It's not a closed process, right?
Yeah, I'm just interested, on the one hand, they're proposing to tell us the prices, and then they're going to tell us how much we're prepared to pay, and it seems like a bit of a conflict in terms of the work to be done.
I'm not 100% sure they're going to be focused on, you know, the actual cost of the building other than the Class D review,
Right.
right? Like they'll give us some high-level costing, but that's not the focus of that scoping study. It's the actual what we have and what we need, and so.
Yeah, I would hope so. Just the language in the RFP, they're basically their statement of work includes these other things, and it makes me curious why they're in there, or if they should just be deleted from the document, in order that we stick to what we want rather than these other questions.
I think with the feasibility study, they're looking at the capability, they're looking at the possibility of getting something done, something achieved, something that is reasonable. That's what the feasibility study means. And so we're asking them for their expertise, their expert opinion on that. And yeah. Mr. Hornick, did you want to add anything?
I could probably add a couple of things to that if that's all. I think sort of my take on it, being there for the process, the feasibility study, I think this consultant's not to tell us how to run a fire department or how to size our apparatus or our personnel or anything. That's a totally different consulting outfit. This is to understand the needs of the community, densification, current, future growth strategies, if they exist. But I mean, I think there's always some sort of strategy in that. So understanding what that is, what that square footage would equal, they will take into account whether or not it's worth it to repair or replace the apparatus bay. And then, you know, as far as costing, and this is supposed to come with sort of a picture, a conceptual drawing of what this could look like for a Class D, which is sort of a rough unit rate, broad scope estimate. But based on the study, there's, I think, as far as the financial fitness question, or however you worded it, there's government granting, there's outside fundings, there's a lot of different avenues to source money for this build other than our own pockets. So I think that's part of the study, is to gather the information so as that we can have it in front of us and say, oh, okay, well, A, B, and C work, and D doesn't, E, you know, so on and so forth, right? It's really just to pull all the information together for us so we can lay it out in front of us and have a good understanding that we could pick one or two or none or all and see how that works, and that does scale up or down the potential build.
Through the chair, thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
I think the point here is that...
Was there any other concerns of the Fire Hall Steering Committee when they went through this? Was there a fulsome discussion and any concerns?
Yeah, I don't think there's any concerns. I think the question that came to the committee, you know, when we sat down, in my opinion, at least my understanding, which I was sort of new in the, you know, in this sort of circle, but to me, we were going there to figure out, you know, Fire Hall Steering Committee. So it never crossed my mind that the apparatus bay wasn't included, but seemed to be definitely a divide in the early group. But yeah, I think maybe it's my construction background, knowing how old the apparatus bay, there's no way it comes even close to meeting any sort of standard today. And since we've got the structural review last year, there's been another code update, so we'll be even further out of date structurally for it. It's not to say we can't structurally upgrade it, it's just not clear without a further structural assessment on the building whether or not it's practical cost-wise. that's the apparatus bay, but there is not any doubt that the actual, front of house, the hall portion, it's a tear down. There's no structural capacity to it whatsoever. It would be a very small seismic event that would knock it flat. So I think, it's not just the, the mold and the leaking roof and the upgrades, the maintenance. To structurally upgrade that building and make it correct is not practical at all. It's just no way. The cost, it's not hard to even figure it out, right? So, but I think that would still come in our review. They would review the hall and give us that information from a professional standpoint, not from a committee, right? Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Councillor
And
Gray.
just a question to the chair. The leaking roof, I thought the leak had been repaired.
It's been repaired many, many times.
Good.
Yeah, it's
The
been
asbestos
repaired
is
repeatedly, almost on a yearly basis.
Not in the time we've been here, I don't think, but
Yes.
Yeah,
has it? Yeah, great. And the asbestos is exposed, that people are being exposed to asbestos, or it's rather if it's torn down, they're concerned about asbestos?
I think there's a concern with the asbestos, but it's not exposed right now.
Correct. And then
Mr. Hornick, did you want to comment on the asbestos?
We did have a hazardous materials assessment. There is no asbestos or delirious materials in the building. It's clean. So that's a bonus for us.
Thank you, that helps. And the mold, where, I don't recall this, I mean, many of these reports are quite old, so is the mold an issue today?
I've certainly seen mold in the fire chief's office. I suspect there's some in the kitchen as well. Probably all the years of leaking. I suspect
Yeah, I don't-
that'll come up in the feasibility study as well.
I live in a relatively old house, and there's certainly mold at our place too. But we won't be considering a tear down. When I was looking at the reports, I guess one of my concerns was related, looking at the RFP rather, they're talking about a single fire hall, and there's, I think, 2 buildings there now, but it's all written about replacing rather than assessing and making decisions as what to do. So I'm cheered to hear our staff and volunteers talking about a good look at options. You'll see later in the agenda that the notice of motion I put forward to follow up on a decade-old report from engineering suggesting that we have someone take a look at the apparatus bay and just see what would need to fix it to bring it closer to standard. Not that it will ever meet the standard. Again, compared to my 100-year-old house, rather than tear it down, we screwed the building with the foundation and put bracing underneath. That was better and less expensive than removing the building and rebuilding. And I think we should likewise, if we would do that in our own homes, we might consider that also for the stewardship of the properties that we're in charge of on council. So I'd like to see that work actually completed. It's been sitting waiting to be done a long time, and I guess we paid good money for the original report, and if we followed through, we would actually have that information to do as Mr. Hornick's suggesting, find out about that, and then that could lead to sorting out some of the other decisions. If I could ask another question, maybe. We talked about the need. It doesn't sound like we are clear really on what need we're looking at. The next one is evaluate the integrated housing units. And that's something we've talked about before here. And it talks about identifying affordable housing challenges within the district. I'm not clear on if anybody's quantified any affordable housing challenges in the district. And what would maybe through the chair, I can ask, what's the plan by the contractor to address this question? In other words, how are they going to evaluate the potential for integrating housing units and meeting affordable housing needs if we don't know, if we haven't quantified the housing needs ourselves?
CEO Fayette?
I am aware that we are due to do a housing study, which will lead to some answer to that question. But we don't want this group to do the housing needs assessment. We're getting a planner to do that for us during the year.
Yeah, I agree. Like the housing needs assessment, the one we're working off of is the CRD housing needs assessment, I believe. So that would be where the consultant would be directed to. I'm not aware of other data other than anecdotal about the requirement for housing in Metchosin. there's a litany of provincial information on the need for housing, for sure. But other than that, that's where the consultant would glean their information from on any kind of need for housing. But I believe that the scoping study would be looking at the option of housing in terms of generating funding options for construction of the building. So I would think the focus would be more on options in that regard, not so much on the, like the future needs assessment, our evaluation of what housing we do or not, or don't have in the community. It'll just be an options analysis.
Thanks. So I think
That
it's-
helps.
I mean, the CRD takes it from our OCP, and our OCP
Yeah.
says we have enough housing
Yeah.
at the moment.
Maybe so.
And alrighty. And I guess there's a definition for affordable housing that they'll be using, and maybe they'll use the CRD.
Anybody else have any questions? If not, on page 3, we have a recommendation to council. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, page on 3.2.4, it talks about the potential impacts and benefits of a new structure, the focus of embedding the District Emergency Operations Center and integrating housing units. And it's a one-sided question, potential impacts and benefits. It doesn't talk about the costs. And I'm wondering, particular to the housing question, I'm back to that again, and perhaps through you I can ask the CEO, will they then look at the ongoing costs and the subsidies required from the district to have affordable housing there? Because once we have, if we were to build housing, somebody's got to, if it's going to be affordable, it needs to be subsidized, and presumably that would be a cost falling to us. I'm not so concerned about capital costs, although that's what's got this in here, but I think we all know that one-time costs are not difficult, it's the ongoing cost. And so the housing, having housing for, I think the examples were affordable housing, basically. It means that we'll need to bring in subsidies. Will that be addressed in this RFP?
I imagine it would be. In the top of the page above 3.2 and 3.1, it does talk about providing options and costs for various build options. So I would imagine that those would be included in that.
Can we, if I may, through you, ask the CEO if the ongoing costs will be included for the housing?
CEO Payette.
Yeah, that's a good question, for sure. This is the kind of question we ask for hockey rinks and pools and things like that, which everyone gets excited about. We build a brand new pool for $100 million and it costs $100 million to maintain over, right? That's exactly the question, so it's perfect.
I don't mind the capital, I'm concerned about the
So
ongoing costs.
A very, very good question for council to ask. And so in their costing analysis, maybe I'll just read all the bullets, just to kind of give everybody a level of comfort. Class D construction cost analysis and estimate is a typical cost estimate that can be expected during this phase to be confirmed by the client. Facility operating and maintenance costs, recapitalization costs to be provided if this was to be considered. The estimate will identify contingencies including escalation and local conditions. The next bullet, the estimate will also identify options related to sustainability and reuse of materials. And finally, we'll run a concurrently during the final documentation review and the draft of the final report. So the costing analysis looks at current and the future, for sure. And I've taken notes, so we'll make sure that we get the right language in there as well.
Thanks very much. I think we heard there clearly operating costs are included, so they will offer us a price on the subsidized housing, I expect.
Councillor Epp.
I'll move that council approve awarding Johnston Davidson Architecture and Planning Incorporated to conduct the firehouse scoping study.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Schuken. Anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Gray?
I'd like to move an amendment to the motion, that in addition, the CAO delete 4.1.9.2 and negotiate a reduction in the contract price. And I've got a second for that,
4.1.
9.2. Or excuse me, sorry, delete the reference to public-private partnerships at 4.1.9.2.
What page is that?
The pages are kind of obscured here, but it's page 20 of the agenda package. There's a seconder, I'll speak to it. Those are simply to remove the reference to public-private partnerships. That's a circumstance where a private company owns the builds it, owns it for a number of years, and then when it's run down, they transfer it back to the public. They've been looked at widely.
Yeah, actually, you haven't had a seconder to the motion, so if you could just wait until there's a seconder. Do I have any appetite for a seconder for this? Seeing none, that amendment's not carried. We'll go back to the main motion. As Councillor mentioned, Councillor Gray.
I'd like to move an amendment to the motion that the CAO insert at 1.4.1 the official community plan, so that it would read the long-term official community plan growth projection requirements at 1.4.1.
Page 7?
Again, they're kind of obscured. It's page 16 of the agenda package.
In the introduction.
So I'm working here to get this lined up with our OCP.
Does anybody wish to support that with a seconder? I will.
Second for discussion.
That's seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion.
What I'm wanting to do here is be sure that we're taking a look at this project in the context of Metchosin and our plans for the future. I recognize the OCP is dated and limited, but there's a lot of material there that explains that we're not densifying the community or intending to until an OCP is reviewed.
Councillor Donaldson, did you want to motivate it all?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thought in regards to, and one of the things that I was wondering is, you know, we're talking about in the future, we're just building it for now, but are we going to build it for 50 years out, right? And so that would encompass what is the densification of our community going to look like. And we know right now that the projections of the OCP are not what we thought they were going to be. So I think it's fine.
I think it's 10 and 25 years we're looking at for absolutely sure. Councillor Shuker.
It seems like Mr. Payette has something to add to this, and I'd be curious to hear his thoughts.
Yeah. Mr. Payette.
Well, through the chair, I would say that in the proposal, include the review of applicable zoning and planning regulations, including but not limited to reviewing the OCP. We can put specifically right there, just to add specificities to the regulations word. That would work.
Councillor Shuker.
Thanks, Mayor Little, and thanks to Mr. Payette. I'm not going to support this. The more I look at our OCP, I'm of the understanding that it is very dated, almost backward looking, and we are going to go through a change next year. And the fire hall is a very forward-looking building, or a very forward-looking project, and we should be thinking about the fire hall and that building standing for 100 years from now. So I don't want to be mired in a document that it's really hard to actually understand how old the OCP is. Is it 95? Is it I see 2006 reference, but it is clearly something that needs to be updated. So, and we will be starting that process next year, so I won't be supporting the amendments.
And I think in the OCP, there's only 4 lines regarding the fire hall. Okay, Councillor Epp.
Yes, I agree with everything that Councillor Shukin said. I won't be supporting this either.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Those opposed? That motion is defeated. Going back to the main motion of the council approve awarding Johnson and Davidson Architecture and Planning to conduct the fire hall scoping study.
I'd like to move an amendment that the CAO would delete the words impact of future densification in 1.4.1.
Okay, does anybody want to support this with a second? Okay, seeing none, there's no, that won't be supported. Going back to the main motion. Anybody wish to speak? Councillor Gray?
Yep, I'd like to move an amendment to delete the reference on 2.1 to a 4.5 acre lot. As we have not been given an explanation on asking the CO what this refers to.
What it refers to is that the building is approximately 400 square feet and it's on a size lot of 4.5 acres. That's the entire scope of the municipal buildings on our municipal envelope. It's
No,
not.
it's incorrect, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
It's about 10 acres that we have here.
We have 10 acres. Okay. CEO Hayek?
You might have to ask, through the chair, you might have to ask other members of the committee. But I believe at that meeting, when there was some discussion about this size, we all kind of thought that it was the approximate size of the building, parking, and bike park, and adjacent properties. I believe that's how we came up with that amount, that number. So it wasn't limiting ourselves to just where the actual current building is sitting. Unless I'm wrong, I think that's the way it went. And Mr. Donaldson also, thanks for
Well, I
that.
don't recall the 4.5 acres, actually. It was a bit of a surprise when I saw it, when it
Yeah.
came on the report.
Yeah.
So certainly maybe
So-
I was sleeping at the switch that night, but I was surprised myself when I
Yeah.
saw that number.
So it's, it's up to really council to decide the pocket we're working within, but for sure we're working with the building, the parking lot. Are we working with the bike park or not? I don't, pretty much a council decision there. Do we want to limit it to just the size of the building currently, or do we want to give it a bit more room? And I think that's the essence of the discussion. So,
Councillor Donaldson?
Thank you. When I first came onto the committee about a year and a half ago, there was the information I had, at least from reading the studies, and I was new to it, so I had to have that background. Originally was the building envelope. All the studies were kind of based on that. And then when this came forward, I questioned it actually at the steering committee meeting, and I questioned it here in this room. And this is the most I've actually heard as far as an answer back. So I was not aware when this RFP was put together, the 4.5 acres, if we're just, was almost halfway through the cricket pitch, I think. So I didn't know how that was going to encompass this building. Were we going to make a big parking lot of this, in the front field, which we already use for other events and such? It is ALR land, is it going to be left? There were a lot of questions, but no answers, so. I haven't heard anything more until just now.
Okay, so it's an estimate. Councillor Shukin and Councillor Epp.
Can I, even through you, Mayor Little, the value of doing any more tinkering with the RFP document? Because as I understand it, like you have contract A and contract B. Contract B is when you begin to hone in on some of the details. I don't think the RFP document is really relevant anymore. I
to speak to that, you can turn to page 13 of the documents you've got there, 4.4 districts, reservations. The district may negotiate the terms of the agreement, including the scope of work and price for the goods or services to be provided with the preferred opponent. So we're at the stage where we're here, and this is the kind of thing that we would do, is to say, okay, we think you're the successful applicant, we have a few changes to make, and this is the process that we go through. You don't need to agree to the motions I'm put forward, but it's where we're at.
Councillor Rapp.
It's just, I mean, I don't know how big the 4.5 acres would be, but it needs to encompass the part where the EOC Center is as well. And it needs to take in a huge area just to, to make sure we've got the scope of what eventually is going to be planned.
Okay. Any other comments? So on the amendment, I'll call the question. Oh, sorry.
I don't think this has a seconder, Marilyn.
There was no second.
It doesn't have a second. Okay. That amendment is defeated. Anything else?
Yes, on page 18, it refers to 2 full-time staff, and I think we now have 3 staff. So I'd like to amend it so that it reads that we have 3 staff with the correct job titles. If there's a seconder, I'll explain that.
So we've got CO Payette, that's right. We've just recently hired somebody, so that would be 3.
Would you like a second motion?
It is temporary then.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's a temporary position. Good point.
I'll
Seconder?
second. I'll second.
Councillor Shukin? Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I think accuracy is important.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay.
Oh, sorry, I will speak. I'm not going to support this. I think, again, 2 positions, 3 positions. We have a whole cadre of volunteer firefighters that filter in and out of that building. It's, a dynamic space, and I don't think 1 full-time position. And as Councillor Rapp mentioned, it's temporary, so I'm not in support of this.
Sorry, if I may, it's not a temporary position, it's a full-time permanent position. The decision was made to hire an individual on a temporary basis, but the position is a full-time ongoing position. That was authorized in the budget, and I believe is what's happened, but the decision was reached at the administrative level to hire only temporarily.
Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Those opposed? That motion is defeated. Anything else? Okay, back to the main motion. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious. So if we pass the motion, there are some notice of motions coming up, and just in terms of the flow of the meeting, I'm wondering if we should deal with those before we vote on this motion. The notice of motions coming relate to whether or not we have a legal agreement with the firefighters, whether or not we're going to adjust the RFP to fit the OCP, but then more than that is the question of, are we going to answer the decade-old question early on in this process to find out, and I use the language is taken directly from the engineer's report, but they advised us to do so long ago. Do we want to deal with those now, or, I mean, we have a motion on the table, but I just want to let you know that it's coming.
I think we'll deal with them when we get to them,
Thank you.
where they're placed on the agenda.
I'll need to vote against the motion because we haven't dealt with these notice of motions.
Okay.
But I am supportive of the work being done. I'm just trying to get clarity. Of course, our position here at the table is different than staff, it's different than residents. We have a job to look at the entire picture and the big picture. Particularly, I'm thinking about minding the purse and getting the best that we can for our community in terms of fire and safety and seismic upgrade and all that, but being careful about our taxpayers' circumstance.
Mayor Little.
Okay. Councillor Shu.
I would ask for a call previous question, which I think is a request to call the vote. I think we've talked about this quite a bit. So.
Okay. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Those opposed? Councillor Gray opposed. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have BC Parks Foundation. This is on page 35 of your council agenda. Okay, so this is a rather ambitious multi-year conservation project, which is the Bilston Conservation Corridor. The establishment of the corridor is for conservation and for interconnection in healthy native habitats. Working closely with the local family, the Matrosen Foundation and BC Parks Foundation has successfully facilitated a conservation outcome for the 32 acre parcel. And we have a letter here on page 35 from the BC Parks Foundation requesting property tax exemptions, an exemption from that. There's numerous benefits to the community as outlined on page 36. Do I have any questions regarding that? Councillor Gray.
I'm going to support the motion that I see in the agenda package, but I'm curious. I think we'll be seeing a number of these in September, and is it okay to approve it earlier in the year without the other ones at the same time? So it's a process question, perhaps directed to the CEO through the chair.
Yeah, I think we can approve it now, and then it will be reassessed in November. Councillor Donaldson? October. Okay.
Sorry, reassessed meaning?
With all of the other applicants, they'll be endorsed or denied in October.
Sorry, so we approve the tax exemption today, and we may potentially remove it in November?
Well, if that's the will of the council in November, we wouldn't omit it because it's a comprehensive report from the staff. It would be included, I imagine. Would that be so? Yes, I'm seeing nodding of heads. Councillor Schuch.
Mayor Little, I'm in support of this, and in fact, I get something like this, and I say to myself, well, why not support this? And I could find no good reason why not to support it. I think I looked at the assessed value of the larger property, which is 52 acres. It was something like $2.5 million with the house. 32 acres is going to be a big drop in that, especially as there's no dwelling there. So at the end of the day, I don't think this actually amounts to much, but it is a contribution we can make to a foundation that has bought something which I think reflects the values of this council. I do have one question. Why is it coming to us now? And there might be a good reason for that.
Yeah, I don't know why it's coming right now. Probably because they're going through their whole process. They've acquired it very recently. I think it was May that they acquired this, and they're going through their processes.
Okay.
Well, that's the same question that I'm asking right now. You're more eloquent, thank you. I will make the motion that Council approve the BC Parks Foundation property tax exemption application for Lot 1, Section 39, Goldstream District Plan, EPP 134285. If there's a seconder, I'll explain it.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. Go ahead.
I think it's a great thing to do. It seems to me that tax exempt, one of the things that we can do to promote biodiversity and protection of various important sensitive areas in Matrosen is to offer tax exemption to properties like this one. Recently, MIASC began looking at the question, how would we measure, what might we do? Thinking about the Thunderbird camp in particular, but this one melds well with that. And I think there's an intention to retain forest cover. As this property is, the intention is there, I think that it's sensible for us to make the move that we're putting forward today. I might also say that and I don't know the nature of the question, and this might help us further on, it might be worth exploring with the BC Parks Foundation covenant on the property and possibly a down zoning. Thank you.
Okay. Was it Councillor Epp that seconded? Did you want to speak?
Yes, just I think that it's a great idea. think unfortunately, we lost our opportunity to have 40 acres of parkland in the Beckingham subdivision. So where we can get it in other areas is really great. I'll certainly support the motion.
Okay, great. Seeing no other questions, I'll call the question. All in favor? No one opposed. Thank you. And then on page 39, we have the notices of motion. Councillor Gray, do you want to go to question or motion number 1? Councillor Gray?
Thank you. So I move that prior to district signing a contract for the Fire Hall feasibility study, the CAO seek advice from legal advice for council on the proposed housing MOU with the Firefighter Society to be certain the district makes no misrepresentations to potential funding agencies, and that the statement of work derived from the RFP be adjusted to conform with Metchosen's OCP.
That's a notice of motion. Do I have a seconder? Okay. That motion is defeated. Do you want to go on to number 2?
Thank you. That the CAO ensure that as a next step regarding the fire hall, a detailed seismic upgrade plan of the apparatus bay building is prepared with sufficient detail that a qualified general contractor could provide order of magnitude costs to help better inform a decision on any upgrades.
Mm-hmm. And do I have a seconder for that? Hearing none, that motion is defeated. Moving on to number 3, Councillor Gray.
I might just correct the record. The motion's not defeated. It didn't go anywhere. It wasn't seconded. The final notice of motion I had for today was that the CAO provide a report to council on efforts and options to lease the commercial space at the old school.
Okay. Yep. Councillor Donaldson, second. Go ahead.
So I've asked a number of times about the question, and I'm not sure of the interest of the rest of council. I guess I'll find out in a vote in a minute. But I'm terribly interested to know what's going on with the commercial space and what we're doing. It is listed as one of our priorities for 2024. Right off the top, find a new commercial tenant for the school. This year, the cost of that space that we'll be carrying, because it's not rented, is $37,500. Next year, if we don't have tenants there, it would be $75,000. So 2 tax points. So I'm interested in us moving ahead on this. We sort of had 3 big priorities in our 2024 report, so this seems to be one of them.
Mm-hmm. So this has been first and seconded. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Donaldson?
Yes, thank you. This is a question the community has been asking as well in recent months. We already know that we're subsidizing or putting more money into the school at almost $200,000 in the budget this year. So promoting the school is key, but getting a solid tenant in there in the commercial spaces without shrinking further, so that can offset some of the tax dollars of our community. So I realize we've got new senior staff coming on board, so it's been a really busy 6 months. So certainly I would like to see a report as to where we are right now, just for transparency and what our timeline and is for that for the remainder of the year at least, and possibly where we're going in the new years as well.
Okay.
Please.
Councillor Schuker.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I too am wondering about the long-term financial picture for the school. I think a lot of people are. I will note that I think that's one of the drivers behind the Metchosen Village Square Society, who see the creation of a new entry point for the hall as a marketing feature for the building. And again, one of the values that we have of the school is the gym, where we can hold concerts and whatnot. And I think people are seeing that it's going to be challenging to make that a viable commercial outlet, or event outlet if we don't have an entryway, a clear entryway. So I think that's one of the drivers behind it. Village Square idea is, I think, a wonderful idea as well. However, my question, I wonder through you, if I could ask Mr. Payette a question, and that question is simply, there's a lot on Mr. Payette's plate right now. When does he think he might have a meaningful report? It's not even a report in a way, it's almost like a marketing plan or like, so again, not taking anything away from the question, but I think that there's other priorities that are in play right now. And yeah, so I'd be just curious when Mr. Payette might think he would have something to share with us.
Mr. Payette, capacity issues, questions.
Issues, never any issues, always solutions. Yeah, great. I want to get this to council as well. So this month, things are lightening up with our new CFO on board, although he's sick right now, no offense. And our fire chief is away, who is primarily working on the school for us. So put all that together, probably September, early September, I can get something together on the numbers, the current, any advertising that we're doing, any rentals that are coming up. I know we have Elections BC in there for 3 months, which is great. So yeah, I think it's time we bring a report forward for sure, or likely September. Okay.
Councillor Epp?
Yeah, I think we look forward to that. I know that there is work being done on trying to, to fill those rooms. But I do agree with Councillor Shukin in that, an entryway and actually putting, we just kind of try to do things piecemeal without really wanting to spend any money to make it a much more viable, attractive school like it would have been had we gone ahead with the Village Square Society's plan. Unfortunately, thanks to our postponement, we may have lost that opportunity of really thousands of dollars in donations and in volunteer work, as well as the money that the preschool had for a grant. So I think it's really unfortunate. We spend, this comes up, the costing of the school comes up over and over and over again. It kind of hit me at our last meeting when we barely blinked an eye at giving the West Shore Parks and Recreation another $10,070 for a master plan program in the last meeting. And we also don't even bother. I mean, I know that the Juan de Fuca, the recreation facility is wonderful there. It's an amazing thing to have at hand. I don't know how many people in Metchosin use on a regular basis, but we do spend probably this year somewhere in the neighborhood of $450,000 to support it. We also have extra money in the last term, $38,000 I think for a bike park there, and this year it was pickleball courts, and so the money just keeps flowing into that area, and yet we question every dollar constantly that's going into improvements at the school, and I just find it really frustrating, and especially that we have really kind of blown our opportunity for this entrance. So I think it'll be good to get a report in September, but I feel we just keep dragging things on, and that doesn't help our economic position at all in trying to get renters.
Very good points. Okay, Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. I'd like to add to that as well, as I sit on the West Shore Board, and I have explored with them about them using our gym. They're at full capacity on their 150 acres down at Juan Fuca Rec Center. They are looking at more satellite recreational facilities throughout the West Shore, Langford and Colwood. They already have some in Langford. They're exploring further in Langford. We also are part of them. We are a partner in that facility. And I have mentioned to them more than once that we do have a gymnasium, and I know that the CAO has also met with them, so hopefully they can do something with our currently empty gym that has $1 million invested in it. Get some return to that money.
Yep.
Councillor Epp.
I did mention at the last meeting too that we put $1 million into it. For that, we didn't put $1 million into it. The provincial and federal governments put nearly $1 million into it, not much of.
Well, they are tax dollars grants.
Councillor Epp.
So just bringing us back to the motion, my interest in doing this is actually looking at raising money. Renting the space, the commercial space where Instinct Training was, to assist in all of the expenditures that we're discussing.
Mhm. Yeah, I think everybody understands that. Points well raised, yeah. Okay, I'll call the question on that kind of motion that the CA provide a report to council on efforts and options to lease the commercial space at the high school. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we have a motion that the meeting be closed to the public under section 91 of the community charter to consider legislative assistant Ms. Miller. Could you go ahead, please?
Yes, section 90.1 of the community charter to consider personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. B, personal information about an identifiable individual who is being considered for a municipal award or honor or who is offered to provide a gift to the municipality on condition of anonymity. K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that the review of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Shukin. Yeah.
I wanted to see, and I excuse my ignorance, if we could add the section covering bylaws for a very specific and short update on a bylaw matter. I forget the number.
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
seeing no from our legislative assistant
Okay.
through, she's channeling Tina as we speak.
Sure.
And related to the fact that we would need to advertise for that in advance.
So this is a special meeting and we've advertised for those,
Okay.
A, B, and K.
Yeah. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I'll take a motion to close the meeting, moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, let's close the meeting.